Welcome to the Re Godisa Botswana Podcast, the podcast that takes a deep dive into Botswana's trade and investment landscape through the BITC lens. Today, we're going to have a deep dive, a deep conversation into an area that I'm sure we've heard a lot about, but I don't think we've fully grasped. And that is IFSC, which is International Financial Services Center. I've got Manjuti Duarte next to me here, who's going to really unpack it for me and help us fully understand what we talk about when talking about the IFSC. What is this offering that BITC is driving as part of its investment promotion offering for the country? And I have with me today Moshie Ratsebe, who's the Director, Investment Promotion, Financial Services, looking directly at IFSC amongst a lot of the other areas in his portfolio. Hi, Moshie.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
You good?
I'm well. I'm all right.
Okay, I just mentioned that you are the guy who is really looking at driving IFSC from a BITC perspective, and I really want us to unpack what not BITC, but what IFSC really is. I know that from the onset, a lot of my previous guests, especially from the BITC side, we've mentioned, even Roli Bile mentioned this at the beginning, to say BITC is the birth child of the merger between BEDIA and IFSC. So you literally are looking at the other child, that the other parent of BITC in a sense. So what is IFSC really?
Okay. No, thank you so much, Panalo.
Yeah.
A very good question. IFSC, which stands for the International Financial Services Center,
That's
is
right. Yes.
put it. Yes,
Yes.
You're quite right.
Yeah.
And to your point that historically it used to be the mandate of promoting the IFSC was under an institution called Botswana International Financial Services Center.
Yeah.
But following the merger of BEDIA and the Botswana IFSC, which then became BITC, that mandate of the Botswana IFSC was then subsumed under the BITC.
Yeah.
So what government wanted to do then, and it still is the case right now, was to utilize the IFSC as a framework where we could position Botswana as a hub for financial and capital flows for companies that want to enter Africa and looking for a stable environment.
Yeah.
And that is what the IFSC really is all about. The Botswana IFSC is all about.
Yeah.
For companies that want a stable, credible environment where they could hub within the African continent and be able to support their Africa-wide strategy.
Yeah. So, you've mentioned stable, credible. What does that look like? What is it? What is the stability that they're talking about? What is this credibility that they would be looking at that would bring them to Botswana?
Okay. No, thank you very much. I think first and foremost, it really has to do with the jurisdiction itself. Is there something that when investors look at, they can trust and believe in? As a country, we are well known for a number of good things. We've got the right fundamentals. If you look at our stability from a governance perspective, democracy-wide, I think we are a leading country so far as good governance democracy is concerned. Stability in general. If you look at the fact that as a country, we have always held elections every 5 years without any shadow of doubt. There is policy clarity, there is policy certainty in terms of what this framework is all about. Credibility really around the framework is about whether investors, as they arrive here, do they experience it for what exactly we say it is?
The promise that we're putting out there.
Are they able to access those incentives that we say they are there? And they are in law. They are not just sort of ideas of some
sitting written somewhere there, but exactly, these are ingrained in our systems.
Exactly, and therefore is something that a minister, for example, cannot just wake up one day and decide to take it away. They have to go through a wider consultation through Parliament, for example, simply because they are entrenched in our law.
And is this born from the sensitivity of financial services itself? Because we had Emeritus recently, and one thing that came out very clearly, like you said, some of these things are in law, and the financial services as a sector requires all those things, that credibility. Is it because it's that sensitivity around it to say we cannot be seen to be in a market that does not have the right controls? We cannot be seen. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think partly it's exactly that.
Yeah.
So you realize that normally these financial services centers may sometimes be associated with jurisdictions that are about tax havens,
Yeah, yes,
which is what
yes.
we are not about.
Yes.
I think for us as a country, we have always ensured that locally we ensure that the framework complies with available standards. That is why we work closely in partnership with key stakeholders, in particular regulators, whether you are looking at NBFIRA, your Bank of Botswana, so forth. Yeah. And globally, we have also ensured that we have to align with global benchmarks and global standards, particularly those that have got to do with the OECD's Forum on Harmful Tax Practices and really standards around what we call base erosion and profit shifting.
Yeah.
So it's important that as a jurisdiction we are able to align with the standards to make sure that we are not deemed to be, for example, a tax haven, which is something that we have never wanted to be associated with as a country.
Yeah, you just mentioned OECD. Not to take you, I just want to take you back a little bit. I remember there was a time where there was a lot of push for us to change our listing. I stand to be corrected, but we're grey listed at OECD. What was the impact of that? What was this? Why did we have to get out of that listing? Like improve our listing from that? What was the significance of that?
I think, and I must congratulate government that we really worked overnight to make sure that
there was a lot of work put into that.
Our situation insofar as the grey listing was concerned. By the way, it was not just Botswana.
Yeah.
Some of our peers in the region were also grey listed. But I mean, government really did a tremendous job to make sure that we come out of that situation. The challenge with a country that has been grey listed is this, that markets then begin to look at it differently. There is a jurisdiction that is, could simply say, not trusted. You'll also realize that what then happens, particularly with cross-border transactions, there is an extensive due diligence that those who deal with Botswana then has to apply on Botswana. Makes it more cumbersome. Yes. So transactions that typically will take a day or 2 days to happen cross-border, then will likely take longer because there is an extensive compliance that those who are transacting have to follow. And simply put, other jurisdictions may not even want to touch Botswana simply because it's a doubtful environment to deal with. So it was quite important for us that we correct our position insofar as the grey listing was concerned, that we can continue to inspire confidence among the markets that we are interested in or that we deal with.
Interesting. I've been trying to really grasp around that because I remember it was a very key issue and we really had to address it. But now, being IFSC, do you have to be an international company only? Can local companies be IFSC accredited?
Okay. No, I think that's a good question. So maybe just to explain, to take you a step back, to say that the Income Tax Act, where actually all the laws that govern IFSC companies in Botswana founded. The income tax defines an IFSC company as a company that first and foremost must incorporate in Botswana to offer what we call approved financial operations, or simply put, these are just IFSC activities. So the income tax sort of lists those activities. And importantly, that this company need to be or ought to be offering these approved financial operations to its related parties or associates, essentially group members. However, from a Companies Act perspective, such a company is still allowed to deal with others that are outside of the group. The difference is that dealing with the group, you are offering the specified financial operations that are contained within the Income Tax Act. And that's how a company then will be allowed to benefit under the IFSC framework. Anything that is outside of those approved financial operations, outside of the persons that the Act defines as the necessary persons that you need to be dealing with, that is the group members, then such transactions with those that are outside of that scope will then be treated normally as a normal corporate. So back to your question, IFSC companies do not necessarily have to be coming from outside. I mean, a case in point, for example, is our own Letero Africa, which is a flagship company listed in the stock exchange here in Botswana. It's indigenous, which has grown into the African continent, leveraging this framework. So we are happy that even domestic companies that are indigenous actually are able to resonate with the framework, to understand that it is not merely targeting foreign direct investors. It is also targeting domestic investors. So it's a framework that really is about both international companies as well as domestic companies.
Oh, so then how does one then become accredited as an IFSC company? What is that process?
Okay. No, thank you. But the process is very simple and straightforward. As you'd understand that within the BITC speak, we talk about accreditation as in companies becoming clients of BITC, so that they can benefit through our one-stop service center.
Yes.
On the IFSC front, we talk of certification because that's what the Income Tax Act talks to.
Okay.
Section 138 of the Income Tax Act talks to the fact that the minister will establish what we call the IFSC certification committee through an order. So there is a statutory instrument that is the IFSC certification committee order, which then establishes, among others, the committee that will consider IFSC applications. So that committee, part of considering the IFSC applications, also to review such applications, and once they are happy that the application meets the criteria for becoming an IFSC company in Botswana, in line with the conditions of the Income Tax Act, the committee then will make a recommendation to the minister to grant a certificate. It's simply a certificate, a paper really, to a company. By so doing, once the minister has signed off that certificate, the company immediately becomes an IFSC
that sounds intense,
as part of the IFSC.
When I mention a section, this clause, this, it's a deep one. It's deep. Because I'm thinking, yay, IFSC is super serious business. Huh?
Yeah, but it's really very basic and simple, to be honest with you. It's not as complicated as probably
it sounds when you explain it.
To make it sound.
No, because but I think I'm listening to you and I'm understanding why I've really come to appreciate that the financial services that sector does not play games. It does not want loopholes. It's financial services predominantly. We're talking money here. Different methods of managing money, but we're still talking money. I would understand why it would have that. But when we were talking earlier before we got into accreditation, I've been listening to talk about framework. What is this IFSC framework that you're talking about?
Framework here really simply means the law.
Okay, the law.
Sometimes it could be referring to a policy. That's why at the top of our conversation I indicated that the laws governing the IFSC are contained within the Income Tax Act, from section 138 right through to 142, and so forth, like that. Maybe just to not to digress much though.
It's allowed.
To simplify it, I often say to my colleagues within BITC, understanding that as BITC we have the head office in Botswana, and we operate 3 regional offices: South Africa, London, and India.
There's also Francistown. Don't leave out of Francistown colleagues. 4.
The domestic one. Now, if you understand how our shared services department supports our regional operations, or international business, as we like putting it, you have got your IT department here, supporting South Africa, India, and London. Now, in those regional offices, we don't have ICT officers. No. Technically, we don't have HR people there.
We don't have the support.
Internal risk management functions actually don't exist in those regional offices. They are all supported.
We've kept it lean. That side. Yes.
So essentially, that's what is a typical example of an IFSC model, where you hub some of these services here in Botswana, the specialty desks that you could from time to time deploy into your regional operations. That's why we talk about hubbing here to support your Africa-wide strategy or operations. So when you do that, you are able to achieve efficiencies in terms of cost of operating some of these international branches. And when you can imagine, if South Africa has to hire an officer, Botswana then plays a leading role in that process. HR department here. So the time that the HR function here spends in servicing South Africa, there's time, there's cost. So the head office, if we're a commercial entity, will have to invoice South Africa okay, to recover the cost of supporting South Africa. That then becomes the income of
I was actually gonna
the head office. And it is that income that we then beneficiate under the IFSC to be taxed lowly compared to any other company that is not necessarily an IFSC, which is taxed at a higher tax rate.
Yes, so because I was gonna ask you, how does Botswana benefit from IFSC?
Okay,
that's exactly where I was going. So you might as well carry on.
Okay.
So okay, looking at it now, obviously for me, I get what you're saying because I understand how BITC operates. But let's peg it at a national level to say, okay, fine. Now, how does Botswana benefit from a company that is IFSC? You said it was certified as opposed to accredited. I need to get a credit out of my head.
Certified,
so IFSC certified, right? How does Botswana benefit from that, such that we actually have a whole policy framework and we even have laws around it? Clearly, there's a benefit for the country.
True that.
Yeah.
I think as a country, first and foremost, we use the IFSC law framework, as we like saying, to first and foremost help attract investments into the country, both domestic and foreign.
Yeah.
Okay. We also use it to diversify our economy away from generally minerals, in particular diamonds.
Yeah.
Okay. If you look at some of the sectors that we target, they are generally outside of minerals. Okay. We also use it to help the economy grow in many ways.
Yeah.
Once you have got these multinationals that will hub in Botswana to support the Africa region operations.
Yeah.
In the process, they will be hiring the locals.
Okay.
So
true.
suddenly you've got skills.
We've got skills, employment creation,
and transfer.
Yeah.
So human capital development is a big component of what we want to achieve with the IFSC. We also in general know that once these multinationals locate in Botswana or domicile in Botswana, suddenly we have got a sophisticated financial services sector. It is also deepened in the sense that you've got diversity in terms of the portfolio of clients that you have within that sector.
Yeah.
And overall, we know that as these companies are doing business here, that they've become profitable. The government then makes money through what? Taxes. So the incentives for us to have this framework are too wide, are many. And that's why we are passionate about developing and promoting it.
And now that you're talking about developing and promoting it, what role does BITC play? How does BITC fit in this? I know I mentioned that, IFSC is one of the two entities that merged to create BITC. But from that point onwards, what role does BITC play now in terms of IFSC?
So, first and foremost, the responsibility of developing the framework lies with us as BITC.
Okay.
If we are going to improve it, as we are in a business of continuous improvement generally, the advocacy for the improvement of this sector then comes from BITC, because we are the ones who are interacting with the companies, with the clients.
Yes.
We are able to pick up issues, to understand where the pain points are, where exactly government needs to tweak to make sure that we are becoming more and more efficient and attractive and competitive compared to our peers in the region and globally. The other role that we play is to do with promotion. We have been given the responsibility of promoting the sector. Of course, we don't do it alone. We have got other partners that we work with locally and international. But really, in simple terms, the responsibility and mandate of developing this sector, promoting it. Developing here means that we are able to grow it, we are able to deepen it, to make sure that it's as sophisticated as it can be, to be attractive for global players that are coming from sophisticated environments. That really lies with us. So if the IFSC doesn't work, you could possibly put the blame on BITC. If it does work, please give us our flowers.
I was going to say, we're not going to leave it on one side. Obviously it's a collaborative effort, but the driving of it and the improvement of it sits with BITC. Now how does us having IFSC in Botswana and driving it, how does it make Botswana competitive? I mean, we've looked at so many different factors, but how does it make Botswana competitive and stand out, especially with the investment promotion drive?
Look, I think first and foremost, one needs to recognize that global investors that are looking at, for example, venturing into into Africa, will naturally be looking at a gateway which is trustworthy.
Yeah.
Okay. I've talked earlier about the stability of our environment. As a country, as an economy, we are well known for that. First and foremost, you know that we hold the highest sovereign credit rating in Africa. Nobody has, nobody has got that investment grade that we possess as a country.
Really?
So investors are looking for that. What then happens is that the companies know that when they establish in Botswana, they will be able to leverage such ratings to access, for example, capital or funding at the right cost and at the right tenor, because we're an environment that is largely understood to be credible, to be stable, you know. And the fact that we have got a very strong, stable currency. The value of Pula today and in 3 months is quite predictable.
Okay.
So, for example, if you look at business that are in the insurance space, where you commit to meet certain obligations in due course, you want to do it in an environment where the value of the currency will still be able to be relevant against the cost or the obligations that you have to meet in future. If you did it in other countries that we can't even mention, for lack of a better way, we companies then they've got the currency risk in that when obligations fall due in future, will the value of the currency be able to match the size of the obligation when it falls due in future? Botswana does not have that kind of a challenge. Exactly.
But you know what? I know this. I have to take off my BITC hat and be the viewer right now. Lately, there has been talk of currency devaluation. I need to verify it myself, but I saw a newspaper not too long ago saying that we have had a bit of a downgrade in terms of our credit rating and stuff. But has that affected our IFSC offering? Even though I did have a chat with, like I said, Emeritus just recently, and from Patience's perspective, no, we're still good. But from where you're sitting, because we have to promote IFSC, has that had an effect on our IFSC offering?
Not quite. I think for me, what government did was to ensure that there was effective communication.
Okay.
To exactly explain what government was trying to achieve. But generally that will be for the Bank of Botswana and the Minister of Finance to ably deal with that issue. But I wouldn't say that it really has been an issue insofar as our clients are concerned. I think for me it was quite important. It was the right action that government took. First and foremost, we hold the larger component of our reserves outside of the country in foreign currencies, and we also want to encourage exports. So I think that move by government was actually
so it was just like looking at so many different factors.
But again, just yesterday I was buying forex, and I mean the rand. You realize that actually we are back to where we were exactly. A few weeks ago.
That's what I was. I realized that myself to say, okay, but I thought I was going to see a huge difference, especially between the Pula and the rand. But I realized it felt pretty much the same as in the past.
Exactly.
So it hasn't really been as huge a change. I think it's because when we hear the word devalue, we get rattled, right? But then when you listen to the experts speak, they were like, well. And
the question is, was it really a devaluation?
You tell me.
Look, like I said, I think the Reserve Bank as well, Minister of Finance will be in a better position to really clarify to clarify this. But if my memory serves me well, really devaluation was not the thing. It was not what government wanted. It's how probably the domestic market was almost trying to interpret it. But like I said, I think government was upfront in terms of communicating what exactly
where they're going with this.
Yes.
And now if we look at you've mentioned a lot about working with partners and collaborations and our stakeholders who helps us with driving the FSC value proposition. Who are our key partners in the space? Who helps us really get this going?
Look, I think first and foremost, for me, the key partners that we have will be your domestic regulators.
Okay.
Because with regulation, then you are able to ensure compliance with the necessary standards.
Yeah.
Okay. What we don't want to do, even as we grow this framework or the center itself, we want to ensure quality and credibility.
Yeah.
We don't want to grow at the expense of credibility.
Very true.
Because if you don't have integrity, therefore, the global markets will not trust us, and therefore they will not want to work with us. But if we are able to build with integrity, the world begin to trust us as well, because it's in Botswana, then we will actually likely continue to attract Africa into Botswana as a hub, as we are already seeing it happen. If you look at some of our peers that otherwise we are deemed to be competing with, actually there is quite a number of delisting in those markets or jurisdictions to come into Botswana. Purely because the regulatory environment in Botswana is quite predictable, and it's credible, as I said. But even more importantly, it is the other partners that we work with are global partners. For example, the OECD, working very, very closely with your OECD's Forum on Harmful Tax Practice, for example. That organ was quite important for us to make sure that we comply with global expectations of how such a framework or regime ought to be operating or behaving. Otherwise, we run the risk of going back to where? The grey listing. So that's why I say, for me, the key partners, for me, regulators, globally, importantly, domestically. Otherwise, we have got other partners that we work with to promote. For example, your what do you call your
that one?
the name is just
the name eludes you right now.
Yes, you are looking at management companies that are here in Botswana. Your big audit firms, for example, they're very critical. We have partnered with them. We've got formal relationships with them to make sure that we are able to advance the promotion of the sector. The other IPAs within the region that we work with, chambers, for example, that another businesses that we work with, including our own embassies that exist in other markets. In other markets, yes.
Quick one. What I'm gathering here is we've been talking financial services. Does the company have to be in the financial services space to be IFSC certified?
So
does it have to be playing with the mind?
It's not necessarily.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we are. I think if you look at currently our portfolio of clients, is across industries quite wide and broad. Some in the manufacturing space, but I need to be very careful here. Even as a manufacturing space. So the Act says the company incorporates in Botswana, provide approved financial operations.
Okay.
What operations are these? Earlier on, I gave you an example of a shared services model.
Yes.
Or BITC. So you can imagine a company that hubs here, that may either have a holding company or it's a specialty desk here in Botswana that wants to support the regional branches or other subsidiaries within the region and globally. Either from a point of view of treasury, fundraising out of Botswana, and further deploying the capital into those regional operations. Yes, you could argue that the treasury then has to do with fundraising. Yes, but if you look at general group administration, for example, you could talk HR function that supports regional operations. You could talk IT, group procurement functions, and risk management in general. It's not so much financial as in a bank. You look at the insurance sector and the insurance activities. As a matter of fact, I think going forward, we see Botswana probably becoming the epicenter of reinsurance activities within the subcontinent. Mainly because of the IFSC framework. So the activities are quite varied. Yes, there is financing activities
Yes,
or
the
financial
money sector,
operations, so to speak.
Yeah.
But you also have other activities, simply put, investment advice.
Yeah.
A company that actually is able to dictate or advise its regional operations where to make investments, where to open further branches or subsidiaries.
Yeah.
That could be a function of an IFSC company that hubs in Botswana, as it supports itself to grow into the continent. So it's not so much money.
I mean, you gotta understand. From a layman's perspective, you hear financial, you think money. You know what I mean?
Yes,
but
yes,
I figured that would be the case. Now, for a business person out there who's wondering if they should apply for IFSC, if they qualify, what would you say to them?
So the application process is very basic and straightforward. So as BITC, we act as the secretariat of the IFSC certification committee.
Yeah.
So once we have promoted the framework to an investor and they're fallen in love with it, because we are good at it normally. So, so what then happens is that we guide the client through the application process.
Yeah.
I think the biggest requirement here is really a business plan or a project plan. We want the client to be able to demonstrate to us, first and foremost, to BITC, what exactly are they going to be doing here in Botswana? Do they fall within the eligibility criteria as stated in the Income Tax Act? As I said, when that company wants to be certified, they must incorporate here. They must be offering this specified activities, not just everything and anything. A company which is purely manufacturing will not necessarily qualify. They need to be offering the specified activities to support maybe the manufacturing centers in Botswana and in the region. So it's important that we understand from a business plan what the activities of these companies will be. The business plan will also help us appreciate whether this project is actually viable, is it sustainable. The business plan will also deal with aspects of funding of this project. Is there indication that the promoters will be able to fundraise for this project? Does the company really have a viable market insofar as its group of companies is concerned? Also, in terms of what the company wants to do, will it align with the requirements of the Income Tax Act? Will it align with, for example, international standards of the OECD? So we guide a client in terms of how to structure the business plan. But importantly, we collaborate with other partners that I had mentioned, management companies, tax advisors that are able to advise clients whether it makes sense for them to actually hub in Botswana and the IFSC. Because the obligations that come with hubbing here, they will require to comply with the standards. They will be required to report on a periodic basis. So that's onerous already. They'll be required to have substantial activity here, as in having brick and mortar bang on the seat, as it were. So there's quite a lot that they will have to contend with. So it's not just simply saying I can operate maybe a letterbox type office here,
I was going to say that
any substance really. So part of the requirement is that there has to be substantial activity. We have to see that this company in earning the benefits here, the incentives here, there is economic activity that they're actually conducting here. Otherwise, such a company will be deemed to be harmful for tax practice insofar as other jurisdictions. And that's what the OECD doesn't want.
I get you.
So we'll guide the client, and then once we are happy with the client that the business plan stacks up, there's a case for it to have under the IFSC, we will then take this application before the certification committee that I spoke to you earlier. They will review it, appraise and review it. Once they're happy with it, the committee then makes a recommendation to the minister to issue the client or the applicant with a tax certificate. And immediately the company then becomes a member of the IFSC at a date that is specified in the tax certificate. And they can begin to benefit from the tax benefits that I can actually at a later stage deal with.
I was actually going to ask you to say, what are the incentives? Because if I'm going to go through all these hoops to come and be certified,
are there really many?
Well, look at it this way. Maybe you counted 3 steps or 4, but
Sure.
within each step, we are not playing games. So now, if I'm going to make sure that I've done everything right, what are those incentives that would make a company say, I want to go and set up in Botswana? I mean, we've touched on, making sure that we're not grey listed, no tax havens and stuff. But what is Botswana offering an IFSC company?
Yeah, so by the way, Bonalo, the process is simple.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's not it's not even expensive compared to competing jurisdictions.
I think
By the way, we don't even charge our clients for being members of the IFSC.
Yes.
But in other jurisdictions, clients have to pay on an annual, almost like a license.
So you're getting licensed
fee
as opposed to certified.
Yeah. So here there's no cost to certification.
Yes.
Government doesn't require them to pay annual fees for these.
Yeah.
No, BITC require them to pay us for actually helping them with the application process.
Yeah.
But coming back to your question of the incentives, normal corporates in Botswana are taxed at 22%.
Yes.
IFSC entities are taxed at a discounted tax rate of 15%. So we give you 7% discount on your corporate income tax.
Yeah.
So that already enhances your profitability in a way.
Yeah.
You also look at, because IFSCs in their nature, these international financial services companies are predominantly cross-border transaction driven.
Yes.
We recognize that when we are inviting them to come and hub here, the owners of these businesses are likely to be sitting
in another country. Yes.
Now, the return on their investment would typically be what? Profits and dividends. As a matter of fact, as a country, you know that we don't have foreign exchange control.
Yes.
That means investors are allowed to fully repatriate profits, dividends, and as they wish outside of the country without any impediments.
Yeah.
So what government has done as part of the incentives was to say, okay, we will not only incentivize the company itself, taxing it lowly, we'll also incentivize the investors themselves. Such that when they receive their dividends out of Botswana, because it's a very profitable environment, they will make profit. That we know.
Yeah.
Okay? When they repatriate, because we haven't put any gates at the borders in terms of foreign exchange controls, we will not tax you. So
they won't lose money
on your dividends. Ordinarily, if you are going to pay, for example, a consultant sitting across the border, for example, in South Africa, as per our double taxation avoidance agreements, we would have to withhold, for example, 10%. From the fees that you are paying a South African consultant, including musicians that come here from South Africa to perform. You have to withhold taxes. But because you are an IFSC, you pay such a person wholly and fully without having to withhold. In any case, most of these consultants don't like it when you tell them if they are going to bill you 100 pula, then you advise them, okay, we will actually give you 90 pula because the 10% has to go to BRS. They will text you, they will tell you, no, that's not what you agreed. I expect my whole 100 pula. If anything, you gross up. Make it 110 and then take that 10 pula.
So that I still keep my 100.
So what then happens is that it drives my cost up as a company. But because you are an IFSC, all payments that you make to non-residents, whether they are dividends, management fees, royalties, interest on, for example, if this IFSC had raised loans from banks abroad, you pay such banks principal plus interest. On that interest, we will not withhold any taxes on them. When you are paying, like I said, dividends to shareholders outside, we will not withhold any taxes on them. They will receive them wholly and fully. So if you compare a certain IFSC to someone who's not an IFSC, what I call a normal corporate, who gets taxed at 22%, you are suddenly much more competitive than this particular person outside of the IFSC framework. Another interesting benefit that government has availed to IFSC companies is, again, to shareholders. Where a shareholder disposes shares or assets within an IFSC company. Under normal circumstances, there is what we call capital gains tax, which is a tax that is levied on a person or a company where there is transfer of assets or shares from one person to another, or there's capital appreciation, there's any gain, or you are disposing or selling, normally you sell at a profit. That profit, government will want to tax it. As residents, you are taxed at 20%, and non-residents are taxed at 30%. So today, a shareholder who's sitting in outside the country, owning here, and they dispose their shares at a profit, government will tax them at 30%. But such non-residents, when they are disposing from an IFSC company, they will not be taxed at all.
No capital gains tax.
Zero. Provided, there's a condition to it, I must say, provided they own in excess of 25% of that entity, equity interest.
Yes.
We also have what we call exemptions that are given to an IFSC company where it participates. There's got ownership in a foreign entity in excess of 25%. I.e., is an IFSC company here in Botswana, has got a subsidiary, for example, in Uganda. Okay, and they receive dividends from Uganda. Such dividends, because we own in excess, Botswana owns in excess of 25% equity interest in Uganda. Such dividends will not be taxed here in Botswana. So it's one of the interesting, again, when it comes to certain withholding taxes that an FSC would have suffered in other jurisdictions, because our law here does not necessarily apply in those jurisdictions. What government does is they recognize that if such a transaction was taking place here, this is the benefit that will be giving you. Because you have suffered in a jurisdiction where, for example, we don't have a DTA with them and so forth like that. So government will give you what we call a unilateral tax credit up to 15%. It makes it 15% because your corporate income tax is already at 15%. To say you have suffered these taxes elsewhere, taxes elsewhere, ordinarily you would not have suffered them if that transaction was executed from here. So we'll give you a tax credit up to 15%. Which is a benefit. Otherwise, as Botswana, we continue to negotiate with a number of jurisdictions to grow our network of DTAs. To make sure that as our companies begin to expand into those markets, we're able to create efficiencies for them. Normally, DTAs will mean that the tax rates between the countries are quite lower than where they are now. DTAs.
Am I wrong to assume DTA is double taxation agreements?
Yes, you're quite right.
I'm learning these things. I mean, look, there's been a lot of tax talk today. I've heard the word tax said many times today, and I think that's the heartbeat of really IFSC. A lot of benefits in that space. But I want you to take a little forward look. Right? How do you see, Botswana strengthening or benefiting more, or IFSC playing the role in, helping Botswana's economic growth in the next 5 to 10 years? What role do you see IFSC playing in that space?
I think it will depend on our appetite as a country to continually improve the framework or the regime to make sure that we are as attractive and as appealing to global markets. From where we sit as BITC, we see the FSC playing a critical role insofar as diversification of the economy is concerned. Because we know for sure the next growth in terms of global economy, it's European markets, American markets actually looking now into Africa. With the continental
AFCFTA?
Yes. That has recently
That's my other new buzzword nowadays.
Exactly. So global investors are actually looking into Africa for their next growth. And they will be looking for credible, stable environments to have their operations. And Botswana remains that credible environment. So we see the IFSC being that silver bullet that government should continue to use to attract investments, diversify the economy, sophisticate our environment, and really making sure that we are connected with the global economy, as it were, through the IFSC. So we see it as being more and more relevant going forward as we try to diversify our economy away from diamonds, as I had said at the beginning of our conversation.
You've made it clearer to me why it's important. We always talk about indices, right? Talking about being number one, like you've just said. In Africa, we've got the best credit rating, sovereign credit rating. we talk about having great macroeconomic policies and economic stability. I think we'd come to a point where we know, but why is that important? And when you look at an offering like IFSC, it really does come together to say, this makes sense. And I think for that, Moshie, we will keep talking. There's a lot to unpack. When I listen to you and, connecting with the conversation I had with patients from Emeritus, it now comes together, and you'd see why an entity like Emeritus would set up here. Like she had explained, all the factors that you're talking about now, they really tie together. And I think if one is an investor, this would be a space that I would really want to come into, because from a country brand perspective, they say that the aura of the country encapsulates all that is within it. So if you've set up in this country and you're doing business, credibility, stability, and all of that matter, this is really where we're at. So thank you. I think we have been educated today.
Well,
if you never wanted to read about tax, today is the day you're going to want to at least Google tax policy Botswana, something to do with tax in this country. Yeah. Thank you so much, Moshie.
Thank you. And if you allowed me, I mean, there is one gentleman that we are working very, very closely with to help us revitalize this framework.
Yes,
and there's a catchphrase that he likes using.
Yeah.
That if we build it with trust, with integrity, the world will trust it.
Truth.
And that because we are building it in Botswana, then Africa will follow. So I would like to end it with that.
I'm going to steal that line. Consider it stolen. Like it. It's beautiful. Please tell him that line is stolen by me. And sure. I'm going to use it from a country brand perspective as well. Pride. Thank you so much, Moshie. Thank you for the
opportunity. Thank you very much.
That was a lesson in understanding other forms of Botswana's offerings. When we talk about Botswana, we know about our peace, our stability, our democracy, our governance. But just looking at it and how it can impact our economic growth, our economic diversification, you really get the true picture of the importance of some of these indices that we talk about. And you get to understand why, as BITC, we play a key role and we're focused and see it from a strategic perspective to drive the growth of sectors like the IFSC, to create a hub within this country such that international players can come and sit here, the incentives, they can get to benefit from them. But if you want to learn more, and I suggest you really learn more about this space so that you really get to understand what else Botswana has to offer, you can contact BITC on 363-3300. We'll be able to assist you. Come and engage with us. Follow us on our social media pages. You'll find us on Facebook at Botswana Investment and Trade Center. You'll find us on Instagram at go_Botswana1, and on X, which is formerly known as Twitter, as I've swapped them. Bear with me. X is go_Botswana and Instagram is go_Botswana1. Hey, producer, but you know what? In the old words, it's like thank you very much for joining me this week. We'll have another chat again next week. Will be just as informative. I'm out.